This one, I actually wrote about this in the Scarlet and Game site this week. Amir Riep is back in college football, Chris. Um, whoa, not sure what that is. Hold on a second. My computer just started playing an ad all of a sudden on one of the windows I had open. My apologies. Amir Riep is back in college football.
Yes.
And he's playing for Lincoln University in Oakland, California. It is not an NCAA team yet. They will be. They have to, get their eligibility. It's a relatively new athletic department for that school, and so they're just kind of working their way through it. I think they have 8 FCS games this year, and they have 3 against Division 3 or 2 opponents, and then 1 against the NAI school. So he's playing college football again, which is great. Let's back it up a little bit. If you're not familiar with the Amir Reep story, Amir, along with
Wint.
Wint,
Yeah.
it started with a J. I can't remember his first
Yeah.
name. Jason Wint or Jalen Wint, something like that. Were charged with rape, and
And
kidnapping
kidnapping.
and kidnapping. And this was back, I believe, in 2019. It was right before COVID hit. Ryan Day immediately, um, without hesitation, removed them from the football program immediately. And because of COVID and things, their case dragged on. And this past January, both of them were found not guilty. We live in a society today, and this is kind of I want to really dig into this, and I really want all of you who are watching and listening right now to participate in this discussion, because I think it's really important in the day and age that we live. We have such an immediate reaction in our society to things. We are judged in the court of public opinion before the evidence ever comes out on so many things. So my question is this: hindsight being 2020, obviously, did Ryan Day make the right decision here, Chris, for these young men?
Well, here's the thing, Eric, and I'm going to put my personal beliefs aside. I believe what Day did was what he needed to do given the current social climate. Now, I know that a person is innocent until proven guilty by law, but that isn't always the case, like you said, in the court of public opinion. Reap and Went had their day in court, and it seems like the court system did the right thing by acquitting these guys based on a lack of evidence. Um, some some people may feel, and sure you read about it, that there was an emergence of the video where um, the complainant appears to be given consent to Reap following the incident. And some people might think that that brings Day's decision into question. I don't necessarily, and this is why. Ryan Day was trying to protect the program. And the video, which cleared these guys, probably had, I saw 3 major flaws with it. One, the visibility is very dark. It's difficult to see, which I think could put question on whether or not it was actually the woman who was the complainant. Secondly, the woman's crying. Why? And then third, the video is taken after the alleged incident. So, according to the law and the university guidelines following sexual misconduct, consent must be given prior to the overt act. So, with her crying during the video and the video being taken after the act, was it something that could have been a coerced consent? You never know. Again, I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, but I believe there was grounds for question. So, Day had to do what he felt was best to protect the program. I also think we have to look at the social climate at the time. I mean, at that time, we were right at the height of this whole Me Too movement that was going on. Anyone accused of any charge related to an accusation of sexual impropriety was just food for protesters, press, and politicians seeking to hitch their name to the wagon and make a name for themselves. And this isn't me criticizing, women or belittling the cause or the severity of the issue of sexual misconduct. It's not that at all. I'm just simply stating that given that social climate of the time, I think what had to be done was these guys be removed from the team. Had they not been removed, had they not taken them off the team, it would have been open season on the university, on the team, and on these guys. We would have had protesters and politicians and media there with their little vagina hats on, screaming and causing distraction before every every game, every practice, possibly following these guys to class and protesting. You don't know what was going on, or what was capable of happening, and it could have taken the team and the team, the university, and the kids involved all down with them. It really could have. So it could have been completely catastrophic for everyone involved had he not done this. So he did the right thing. He dismissed the players. He sheltered the team. And it's very sad that these two guys did lose, their time on the team, that their names were drugged through all this, that even though they were acquitted, Eric, you and I both know, again, given our social climate, given the court of public opinion, they may have been acquitted, but that doesn't always mean anything. And it's very unfortunate that this happened. Um, Thankfully, Wint did graduate and was given his diploma after being acquitted, graduated in 2020. And again, as you said, Amir Heap is going to get a second chance to play college athletics. Maybe not at the level he was at, but maybe this opportunity, pans out for him and he's able to rebuild his life and rebuild his football career. I mean, the fact is, this is a kid that we were talking about as a potential starter before all this went down. So
At least two deep. He was on the two deep.
he was
Yeah.
at least on the two deep. This is a guy who had NFL potential.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, he's missed out on some time. We saw in the NFL with Sean Watson what he looked like after missing out on a year and a half of playing time. Hopefully, Amir can shake that rust, get back out there, and resume doing what he loves to do without too much of a negative impact based on this. But yeah, I think this was more about protecting the program, protecting the university, given the social climate. Um, because I have to think that video, if they had it for the trial, they had it then.
Sure.
I'm sure Ryan Day saw the video.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm sure you've read the articles too, where he, as well as there was another defensive player, Farquhar or McFarquhar. I can't remember the other player's name, who actually came out and said that the athletic department said, before you engage in sexual conduct, make sure you're getting a video of consent just based on who you are and what you do. Um, that's concerning to me that they feel that they need to tell players this, and B, that the players actually have to do this to protect themselves. Like I said, this just is so much more than a simple legal case. This is just I think, an indictment of the society we live in.
You bring up some good points. Now, I was going to push back a little bit on you, but you bring up a couple good points that actually reminded me of a couple things that Ryan Day was having to deal with. Number one, it wasn't that long ago that his mentor stepped down, and it was based off of abuse that
Yes,
was going on in his coaching staff.
yes,
Um, the accusation thereof, I should say. So you already had a climate of mistrust, I guess is probably the
yeah,
word I would use there. Um, and then you had the female masseuse that got in trouble. She was coming and I guess for the lack of better term, giving happy endings to the players.
mhm,
And they found that out. And of course she was kicked out. So you've had some things happening that Ryan Day probably thought I can't let these things just take down the program. And so I think you're right, Chris, in that he was being very protective of the program. But that being said, do you think he can maybe remove them from the team without removing them completely from like the program and in totality?
Oh, sure.
Because
He could have put him on, say, a
suspension, he could have suspended
suspension
them for a
where
while,
they
you
where
know?
they could have even worked out with the team, just not participated in games, um, or suspended them from the program without actually removing them from the program. But let's be honest, Eric. Even if they, like I said, they were acquitted. They were found not guilty. They they are innocent. I mean, let's call it. They're innocent of these charges according to the legal system.
I
However, go
have
ahead.
a soft spot in my heart for somebody who's been accused of something that they haven't done because I've
Oh, I
experienced that.
agree.
I've
I agree.
experienced that, and there's nothing worse than people looking at you and thinking you've done something and you didn't do it. It's not in your character, it's not who you are, but because they hear it, they think that's who you are.
Right.
And I just don't want us to get to a place, where it's like, someone says, you know, God
You're
forbid Kyle McCord did this, and now we're
yeah.
without a starting quarterback when he's done nothing of the such. Now, famously, famously speaking of Jim Tressel would say, "You guys need to be at home and in bed before 11 o'clock."
Yeah.
He was like, "Nothing good happens after dark, boys. You guys get home." He preached that to them. And so I agree that sometimes you put yourself in bad situations, bad things are going to happen. I get it. But I just don't like the idea of someone just making up an accusation and immediately you're gone. Guilt by court may or may not reflect the true situation, Larry says. Day had to err on the side of caution considering the severity of the alleged offense.
I kind of agree with that, Eric. And like I said, it's not always about, sadly, what happened in court. And this is why I think Amir Riep is going to benefit from not coming back to the Ohio State program. Is the fact is, you just mentioned it, whether you did it or not, you are guilty until proven innocent in the court of public opinion. And it's wrong, but I also feel that Reap coming back as a member of the Ohio State program would have been a negative for the program, and I believe a negative for Reap given the high profile nature of the program.
Let me ask this question, and I want to know your opinion out there, those who are watching. Chris, submit your opinion real fast, then we'll try to do our third segment here in lightning blitz time. Maybe we'll just answer some questions. I don't know, because I don't know we're gonna have enough time to talk about 5 recruits. But you okay? So you're telling me now? Let's say Amir. Now that we know what we know, would you welcome him back in the program? Now I know you kind of just said it's good that he didn't, but now that he's been acquitted, if there was a spot for him and he wanted to come back as a fan, would you welcome him back?
Yeah, I mean, if and this is again, I'm trying to separate my opinion from what I think logically is the case.
Sure.
My opinion is he had his day in court. He was found innocent. He should be, if he wanted to put that upon himself and be willing to take on that burden of playing at a high profile university such as Ohio State with that hanging over his head, I think you should let him. Um, like I said, the courts found him not guilty. So I believe in the judicial system. And I feel that if he was found not guilty, then the case closed. However, you look at the same time, the courts found Deshaun Watson not guilty. And I think that we all know that given the number of complaints, that it's likely that at least something bad happened. Um,
Deshaun settled out of court. That's different.
well, no, he settled out of court on the civil charge, a lot of the civil charges.
Hmm.
The criminal charges, he was found not guilty. So that being said, not guilty doesn't always isn't always the equivalent of innocent.
Larry brings up another good point.
But
Better for him to find greener pastures without the microscope being upon
yeah,
on him.
which is
Ye-
my point exactly. Yeah,
okay, yeah, I agree with you because if he were to come back, what's the whole story with him being back on the team was?
right,
You missed 3 years because, and you're now innocent, but what really happened? And I mean, there's going to be all of those type of questions where he maybe doesn't have to face that where he's at. He might get asked one time, you know,
right.
but it'll probably be more on the lines of like with the story I wrote about having a second chance, a second opportunity to right or wrong, things of that nature. Larry also says Deshaun, very bad judgment.
Agreed.
Yes.
Well, just like you said, Eric, you nothing good happens when you put yourself in bad situations.
Correct.